What happens when you step away from the score and start writing music in real time? Welcome to I Love Your Stories. I'm your host, Hava Gurevich, and in this episode, I sit down with Veena Kulkarni-Rankin, a classically trained pianist and teacher whose journey has taken her from the precision of traditional performances to the freedom of improvisation with a band. We talk about the magic of collaboration, how our goals and definitions of success shift as we move through life, and the surprising parallels between the creative process in visual arts and in music. Welcome to the show, Vina. Now, quick word from our sponsor, and then we'll get right back to the show. When I started selling my art, I had absolutely no idea how to actually turn it into a business, a professional business. And then I came across art storefronts, and that was a game changer. I've been a customer now for years, and they've been instrumental every step of the way of helping me succeed. I have a gorgeous, powerful commerce website. I have marketing tools and a membership to a community that is very supportive and teaches me how to succeed as an artist. Check them out, artstorefronts.com, and tell them Hala sent you. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm really excited to have as my guest today Veena Kulkarni-Rankin. Is a musician and sh- she has a couple of bands that she will also tell you about in a minute. But I had the great fortune, to sit in and listen on a rehearsal a couple of weeks ago. And I was so struck by the way, also struck by the way that you talk about music. It felt like it's been rehearsed before, but you were still refining it or you're still working on it and you were kind of making it happen in real time. And it's the closest thing like for me, the analogy would be watching somebody paint. And what I was really struck by is the way you describe music, the way you describe the process felt so visual to me that I just immediately thought like, oh, and I remember I just like closed my eyes and I could see the music because of how you described it. And then you asked me what it looks like to me. So I was like, okay, I have to have Veena. So Veena, welcome to the show. And let's start with if you can just tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Well, Hava, I'm very happy to be here. This is something new for me. And actually, you were sitting in on the first rehearsal iteration of that piece, believe it or not. So we'll talk about that later. Well, I am a pianist by training, very Western classically trained since age 5. And I've had the privilege of studying at Indiana University, the University of Michigan, with most of my degrees in piano performance, and finally one in piano pedagogy here at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. So I love teaching. I finished my degree in 2005. Since then, that was a long time ago, my teaching and playing have evolved a lot. And long story short, I love improvising.
Mm.
I've always been a jazz fan, and it's completed me completed my skill set and wish list to be able to create on the spot and have the freedom of not having to get it perfect,
Mm.
but still having a framework for these pieces. So, what you heard in that rehearsal a couple of weeks ago, the jam session, was that I did actually have a plan, but with the other members, particularly with Babak Soleimani on Santur, we were also scripting the large scale format of how this piece would go. I came there simply with a prompt that it would be called Bukang Liwaiway, which in Tagalog means dawn, morning, morning breaking. That was it. So we did have quite a visual inspiration, and it helps for us to have some ideas.
Mhm.
That was it. So you were seeing us work with, I would say, some basic elements of creation.
If you can tell us a little more about the band, the instruments in the band and the genre of the band?
Sure.
Because you said you're trained classically, but this is how would you describe it?
Aga Delim, we are myself on keys, and I would say the main flavor that really gets people's attention and makes their ears sit up is Bobek
Yeah.
Soleimani playing on the Persian santur, which is, I guess one would call it a dulcimer, where the strings are open and they're struck. He's highly trained, although he has another job, and it's amazing what he can do. So he comes with a deep Iranian Persian training with all of the scales and melodies that were part of his training. So when I have ideas, almost immediately, it does sound like he came with something composed, right? I understand why you thought it was written, but he took an idea and ran with it very quickly. And then we have our wonderful bass player, Frankie Bennett, and finally, Chris Pike on drums, who just 1 or 2 years ago graduated with a jazz degree
Oh,
at University of Michigan. So he's our young man and has really serious jazz chops, which is wonderful. So we are also struggling to explain our music, but I would call it jazzy world music.
mm,
Very simply,
okay.
jazzy world music.
World music. Okay, yeah. And I would add like this sort of loungy down tempo
I
um
love it.
component to it. Yes. Um that's amazing. Can I ask, so you're trained Western in Western,
Correct.
right? And Bobek?
Correct.
Bobek.
Love it.
He's trained in the you said he's Iranian Persian tradition. Is it
Yes.
same is it the same tradition as the Western tradition? The
It
scale?
is it is not. I would say in terms of relating it to my
Mhm.
influences, it's more similar to Indian classical
Okay.
music, which is highly systematized but improvised at the same time.
Wow.
So, again, I'm not an expert, I'm simply a fan, although my dad is Indian. Indian classical musicians and Iranian classical musicians are rigorously trained in scales and rhythms and melodies that are connected to certain collection of notes. And then they use those materials in real time to improvise. Where so I would say it's more akin to jazz training.
Okay.
And jazz musicians here everywhere are very rigorous in their training, and I have not gone through that. I've had a couple of lessons and classes, and I listen to it every day. And so I have a comfort level with improvising, and maybe one day I'll call myself a jazz musician, but right now I'm just a musician who loves creating on the spot.
Can you so I understand that improvisation is in a sense creating on the spot and sort of reacting to what just happened, like each note that gets the next note kind of thing. But can you talk more about the difference? Like what is it about improvisation that you gravitate, like why you gravitate towards that? And how is it different from more traditional, like non-improvisational? Because I I'm just like I'm a consumer of music, but I'm so ignorant when it comes to it. And the more you talk, the more like I have so many it sounds so much like painting to me. And so
Well, this analogy is gonna be rich for me as a takeaway. It's exciting. In the conservatories of music composed by, uh, written down, once upon a time, it was mostly curated as European composers, but there's so many composers in every continent that bring their culture and inspiration and talent together. Those notes are 99% of the time written down.
Mhm.
It's like memorizing a script to a Shakespearean play. Wow, right? But those words are performed with quite a bit of variety, but verbatim.
Mhm.
You don't expect your main actors to go off cuff and improvise when you're gonna see Romeo and Juliet or one of the other plays, Midsummer's Night Dream. You expect to hear what Shakespeare wrote, and that's the same way. You expect to hear a Beethoven sonata
Mhm.
with improvised forms. There's a huge gamut here, much like visual art, and I would say the music that I tend to listen to, be it jazz or funk, again, huge genres of
Yeah.
music that encompass wildly different sounds, or say Indian classical, there are frameworks that they stay within. So there's a selection of notes and what we call harmony underneath that the musicians play off of. So they have a palette, let's say,
Yeah.
of colors that they're coming back to
Mhm.
and shading those colors, but those notes or colors and rhythms, they go together and they're playing with it really and messing with you, maybe referring back to the rhythm, maybe scrambling it up.
Mhm.
And typically at the beginning or the end, now I'm thinking more traditional jazz, you'll hear an iteration of the melody, the original melody,
Mhm.
which is especially true for vocal jazz.
Right, like
So
this.
the tunes that you love, what we call jazz standards,
Mhm.
you'll hear Ella Fitzgerald scatting, and then at the end, you hear the melody
Mhm.
as she presented it at the beginning of the track.
The analogy at some point breaks down, but uh, I think improvisational to me feels very much like creating. You start with, a blank canvas and you put some initial marks on it, a color wash, a few lines, and as the image grows, what's there sort of dictates what goes next, and then you kinda step away and say like, "Oh, this is a little heavy over here," or, "It's a little too dense over here. Let's break this up a little bit. Let's add a little more, like, richness here." Um, so, I you know, that's it's kind of what I was hearing. It's just fascinating to me that, you can be, when it's something that you, like, do well, understand well, practice, get better and better, um, and, some of it is intuitive, some of it is language that's very specific to that discipline, but at a certain point, especially if you wanna get, like, really, really specific about what it is that you want, where it's like a feeling or a emotion or, like a gesture. Um, the way that our brain processes it, it just feels to me like it processes it the same way, um, whether, like, the perception is happening through your ears, through your eyes, through your hands, I think there would be a very similar kind of analogy that can be made to, dance, and you mentioned Shakespeare, so certainly to performance, to acting. Um, there's this innate kind of a need to express. That's a human I just like this human need to express an idea. I just something that is like it's the thing that happens before the thoughts happen. That's this really raw thing, and you
Oh, I love
you
that.
have you have a medium that you're good at, and it gets translated. It's almost like Yours gets translated in one language. Mine gets translated in another language. A dancer will translate it and get into a third language. But we are saying like a similar thing. It's so primal. And then you see it in kids, like in young kids, and they all scribble. They all
Right.
try to sing. They all try to dance, and it's just it's there. And so when recognizing, like, that I think that's what I connected to, is I recognized what you were trying to communicate, and, to me, like, especially if I close my eyes, I could see you talking about something visual. Um
That's amazing. Oh, I really love that, especially where you said the unconscious thought before we verbalize it.
Mhm,
I like that a lot. You asked me a bit a few moments ago what attracts me to improvisation. Along those lines, to me, it feels spiritual and religious to well, first of all, for me at this stage, I don't know if other improvisers feel this way. I do feel a little bit like I'm falling off a cliff, taking a dive, not a physically dangerous one, but something where I'm vulnerable. I don't know what's gonna happen. So there's that exciting feeling. Then there's the excitement of thinking, "What will Bobek, Frankie, and Chris do?" I don't exactly know what they're gonna do either, although I have an idea. I mean, we certainly compose a piece, and the one you heard, we'll work on that a lot. It'll be iterated, reiterated, and it'll evolve into something that is a little more standard for us, and yet we'll still be riffing on it and improvising. So there's that nervous feeling of, "Okay, God," let's say, and that in my case, I'd say that, "I trust you. I'm gonna take that step off the cliff over the water and close my eyes, trust the skill and training I've had, but also trust that something beautiful is gonna happen, and I'm gonna also respond to the vibe in the room." It's exciting, of course, to gather with these musicians in rehearsal, but to have a performance and even having you and your partner there change the energy, which is really neat. We're responding to the collection of people
yeah,
and events of that day.
mhm. I wanna pick up on, something before I forget. The dynamic of working on this with other band members. So, in a sense, and I could tell that the 4 of you really, it's almost like telepathy, at least
Mhm.
especially with Bobek. It felt like, especially the 2 of you, like, had a almost like a telepathy thing going. Like, um,
I love that.
like this understanding. We joked at the time. I was thinking, like, if I had like 3 other people sitting next to me while I'm painting and going, "Oh, can you add a little more blue here?" I'd be smacking all of them, because it's just, because so that's where the analogy ends. And I think for a lot of musicians, especially if you are in a band, the dynamic of working together feels so important. Um,
Yes.
and I'm assuming there's sometimes a little bit of a compromise that happens, but at the same time, it's like 4 large brains working on something. And so,
Yes.
and how long did it take you to find that that level of dynamic with your band members? And how do you know? How do you know when you have it?
Well, hmm, it is a skill to learn how to collaborate,
Mhm.
and my skills in collaboration have had decades to bake in different forms and with different people. Aga Delim is relatively new. Bobek and I started jamming together, I think in 2022 only, and he and I were connected by Justin Snyder, a wonderful avant-garde, I would say, very edgy pianist that I teach with. Justin connected us, and Bobek and I started playing, hit it off immediately. There was a kinship in personality and interest in improv and curiosity, I guess, interest in American sounds, international sounds. I was extremely excited, of course, by his skill level, but his own background with Iranian scales. And I could hear some overlap with Indian classical, which I've always loved listening to. But my ability to work in a group started with chamber music as a classical pianist and then as a church musician here in Ann Arbor at the Christian Reformed Church. I've been part of the contemporary band for, wow, over 20 years, where I met my other main collaborator, Jean-Bernard Sarin, for Cuento Musique. And there we would discuss things in rehearsal. Younger band members who were often were teenagers volunteering thought we were arguing, but we weren't. We were just working it out. All that work has helped me be willing to give things a try. Just try it out. Just try it out. So in the rehearsal that you heard, the four of us musicians were not necessarily understanding what was in the head of the other, and that was okay. So Boba had a different tempo. We started to talk about doing something with 5 beats, and we tried it, and one thing that's gonna help us a lot, especially with a group like Aga Delim and my other, uh, project, Cuento Musique, we record our sessions. So and hearing what worked, what we liked, and I'll like things, but I might change the order around. So I might change my panels, put them in a different order. So
Wow.
that reiterative process, we don't have to get it right away. Yeah, so I've enjoyed also getting older to just chill out, you just mellow out. So there are funny stories of, especially with chamber music, just the angst of feeling that, well, we have to play the phrase this way. With Aga Delim, we are scripting everything and somehow having a sense of what you want and just trying other stuff really helps. I think hearing the expertise of all 3 other musicians, I can trust that something good's gonna happen, even if we don't necessarily do what was in my head right away.
Can I ask for you personally at this point in your life and with your music, you teach, right? You
I do quite a
teach
bit.
music. You have 2 bands, you're pretty committed to it. How do you define success for yourself?
That is such a great question. There's several answers to that, obviously. With the bands, with Cuento Musique, with Aga Delim, enjoying ourselves on stage is huge. That is a large component of success. We do want to have audience accolades, being asked back for repeat performances. There's some classic things that are connected to making a living.
Right.
But yeah, success is in the enjoyment, in the feeling that I guess that we finished some things, that it got past the idea stage, recording, making tracks. Cuento Musique has an album out. Aga Delim has singles out and will soon have an album. I'm still searching for it too, I'm still in that process.
Does it change as you get older?
Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely, especially being a classical musician who was born in the '70s and raised in the '80s and '90s. Piano competitions for classical pianists were huge. Now, I would classify those as really macho events, and what I mean is classical pianists will memorize their whole 60-minute program. It's very impressive, and most undergrad music majors at the universities, let's say in Michigan, will knock your socks off. They're really amazing, and there's thousands of musicians, so once upon a time, winning those competitions was important in building the CV, but now having a unique sound that I enjoy, having enough concerts on a regular basis, the fact I would say that Great Lakes Performing Artists Associates, it's a nonprofit management, they manage us, and that's wonderful to see that we get good concerts through Great Lakes. I would call that success, and also understanding that not everybody's gonna like our sound. It's not gonna be everyone's cup of tea. I can definitely say that for other musicians who are clearly exceptional, but not necessarily my taste. There's room for all of us.
Mhm.
That general frame helps me relax in, "This is our sound. This is what we're really into." So, yeah, it's a very easy on ourselves definition of success, I would say. But yeah, also getting paid. I know, but can't deny that.
No,
You
you're
know, starting to earn more and more
yeah.
for one's art, we all know that that's necessary.
It's
I've
necessary, but also there is a certain level of validation that comes with it.
mm.
And, you know, for me personally, that was something I struggled with for a very long time. Like I had a really hard time thinking about my art as a commodity. And I still try like when I'm working on a painting, I try not to think about like, oh, is someone going to buy it? Because that messes with creativity. It messes with intent. Um, but when somebody does, spend their hard-earned money to buy something I created because they love it so much, they wanna live with it and look at it.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so yes, there's the money component of it that's, like, great. If I can do that, I don't have to, like, be a barista somewhere on the side. But on another level, it is a confirmation and a validation that what you're putting out resonates deeply, you know, with someone else. And I can imagine that you get some of that when you're performing because you were saying that even just having us come and listen, changed the dynamic, and I can only imagine that when you're performing and you can see, like, you're in real time, you are seeing how your music is affecting your audience, and that kind of feedback loop of, like, it resonates. You know, what you're putting out is being consumed and appreciated, and you can see that and how that feeds into it. And if you're getting paid for it and somebody's booking you saying, "We love you, please come back, and we're paying you to come back," it's it is on that level, not just us, a transactional, like it's not just a financial transaction. It's also on another level, just a very kind of reaffirming on a deeper level, at least for me, and
I would agree with that. The words you used were reaffirming, having someone resonate with your creation, that connection. Yeah, so having a listener or viewer want to purchase your work, for me, it is those things on the level beyond financial need
Mhm.
that it affirms and it says, "Hey, we resonate with what you did."
So I'm gonna shift gears a little bit, and we've been talking a lot about the music and the art,
Right.
and I wanna kind of shift it more towards the artist,
Okay.
the artist and the practice, and that kind of like artistic growth or artistic journey. And so we're about the same age and had other chapters in our lives, and um so like looking back at the arc of your sort of life and your musical career to the so far, what are you most proud of?
One of the constants that actually helps transform whatever I do is originated with my classical playing, and that is putting it all out there on the stage. So allowing people have said that I'm a very expressive performer, and I mostly would play Liszt and Chopin and Rachmaninoff pieces, and that carries through to my performing now, even if it's not a classical piece, even if it's with a band. So staying true to that, really being expressive and connecting with the audience is a value. So I have this, I would say, value. I don't know if it's a mission statement, but whatever I do want it to resonate with audiences. So, especially with Jean Bernard Sarin, Dr. Jean Bernard Sarin, my collaborator for Cuento Musique, we started our collaboration as Cuento Musique in, I think, 2014, 2015. So it's about 10, 11 years, and our concerts emerged into the 19th century salon-style concerts where there's a duo piece. He's got an amazing voice, so we might have a piano and duo piece. Then we might talk a little bit about the thematic aspect of the concert, and those type of concerts that have a theme and you were breaking down the fourth wall, we're talking with the audience, involving them with maybe a little bit of sing-along here and there. I've been really most happy with those type of concerts. Those have really felt great. I had the privilege of doing one for my dissertation in around 2004 at the Carytown Concert House that had a simple concept of going from a dark hall into light, and the music that I chose started in a dark place and ended up with the later works of composer Franz Liszt. And those programmatic aspects have been part of my, I would say, pride and joy with Cuento Musique and even classical concerts. So I enjoy this programmatic or extra musical element. So generalizing, perhaps that could be a guiding question that helps with when people are saying, "What do I wanna do next
Mm.
with my art? How does this really up the connection with the viewers or listeners?" And I hope that could be something that opens the door
Mhm.
for artists
Yeah.
that are saying, "What's next with what I do?"
I'm hearing a lot that music isn't just your chosen like artistic expression, it's your chosen form of expression or communication altogether.
Yes.
It sounds like you are happiest when you are collaborating with other musicians, collaborating with the audience, when there's when that channel of communication is open and you can communicate so directly and viscerally through the music.
You got it. I'll have to come back to you to distill what makes me tick.
Um, if you don't mind me asking, I know that you've been recently dealing with some health issues, health challenges, and um, I'm I'm curious. I know I'm sure it's pretty obvious how those challenges might be affecting your ability to perform, your ability to, you know, be at your best. But I'm curious how, in the other direction, is your music, is your art helping you with your challenges?
I do feel the best when I'm playing and jamming with Aga Delim, creating, performing. I was diagnosed with late stage ovarian cancer end of April and May.
This is so recent. I didn't realize that.
Yes, yes, it's the chemotherapy has required me to take a break from teaching. I haven't minded it. I'm thankful that I can take a break, although I miss teaching. I guess it's in highlighted my joy and desire to perform even more
Mhm.
and to teach. That's a whole other conversation. I've been envisioning ways to teach more effectively and more financially successfully. And that's been fun to take a break and say, how am I going to do things differently? So actually, this enforced hiatus for cancer treatment will probably change my teaching methods more than anything. But playing, it's been interesting. I've thought, oh, I can't not be playing with with the bands, and creating things with Cuento Musique or Aga Delim is really healing. It truly is medicine, which is exciting to bring to a concert. I've always felt that we all have our music that heals us. And, perhaps that is another general frame. These are personal to me, but I think it might resonate with other artists that what is healing? What makes you feel better? What makes you want to be in a gallery space? You personally, to be authentic, to really stick to your voice and trust that it's going to connect to a certain segment of the population that I think when you're doing your studies as a younger person, I don't know if many of us, I wasn't this prescient when I was young to think about these questions, but getting older, taking a break from, typical ways of doing things. In my case, it was practicing classical music, which might be alarming to some of my colleagues. I just didn't do it as much for many years, or in this case, illness. I'm taking a break.
Mhm.
Then you have a chance to think, well, what is what are some guiding principles for when I come back in
Yeah, I
to
love.
my practice, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I'm sure also that when you're like immersed in your art and it's just the time when everything else falls away, um, and you're not focused on the illness, you're not focused on those things that on your limitations. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah,
That I believe is universal for
absolutely.
a a person going through a hard time
Yeah,
to
yeah.
not deny it, but to look for a way to be immersed in something they love.
I I wish if there was more of a notion that just engaging in art, actually making it are expressing yourself artistically in whatever happens to be the thing that you gravitate towards, that it does heal you. And if you're not sick, then it makes you even better. Like it can take you even higher. And just like, we're just only now beginning to understand as a society, and not individually, but as a society, that like what you eat is who you are, like what you put in is what
Right.
that you should eat healthier if you want to feel healthier. You should exercise if you want to feel healthier and be more like have more vitality. I think it should be part of like the health plan, the national health plan to
I could not agree more.
you know, like you need to have a creative outlet because it will heal you, it will make you feel better, it will make you healthier altogether, like mentally and physically, I think. Um,
Imagine what you just said, this creative outlet being a core to every child's education.
yeah,
It is in some places and times.
yeah, it was. It's
I
not.
can only think of it being a positive thing.
Yeah, yeah. So let's just put that out there.
Yes, I'm gonna agree with you on this.
We've created it as a thing. Now it's out there. This has been amazing. We could keep talking forever. Thank you so much for taking the time. Um, I feel personally that, you know, for me, music, especially classical music, it always is a little bit. It's a little bit intimidating. Hearing you guys. Uh, Compose together and play together. It was a really big learning experience for me, but not like academic learning, but this kind of, if there's like this boundary of like everything that I know about music and expression in that way, like that boundary just kind of grew, just like
Oh, that's wonderful.
from that. And, in part because I was there and I was experiencing it in person, in part because it just struck me again, like how similar it is to art making. And just talking to you now and hearing more about the dynamic of it and what it means to be a musician, and what it means to be a painter. And on so many levels, it's it's the same.
There's a real similarity to the creative process
Mhm.
and openness to surprises.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Um, so we are going to link to both bands. Can I ask those the band's names? Do they have meanings in what language?
Yes. So, Cuento Musique. Cuento means story in Tagalog, Filipino, and musique means music in Haitian Creole.
Oh, okay.
So this points to the backgrounds of me and
Storytelling,
Jean Bernard story music.
story music, yeah.
And we do that. That's what we do. Then Aga Delim has a a long story which we share in our concerts, but that's also Tagalog, Filipino for sunset, and it literally means the light or darkness snatching the light,
Oh,
but it's just become short for, um, I think snatching the darkness is snatching
mm,
the light away for the last remnants of day.
nice.
So, yes, I hope that loungy feeling continues. For a deep, deep blue indigo color.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you again.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Hava.
Thanks again for tuning in. That's our episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please help us out by leaving a review, a comment, subscribing, sharing it with your friends. Every little bit helps, and I really appreciate it. And before we go, I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor and producer, Art Storefronts. If you've been thinking about turning your art into a real business or just want to level up your online presence, now is honestly the best time, especially with the holiday selling season coming up in Q4. I can't stress this enough. Art Storefronts isn't just a website builder. They're a full-blown partner for your art business. They give you the tools, education, and marketing support to actually make sales, not just sit online and hope. And if you're unsure whether your art will sell, no worries. Just head to artstorefronts.com and sign up for a demo. They'll give you a free art review and a marketing assessment of your art to show you exactly what's possible. So go to artstorefronts.com, tell them Hava sent you, and I'll catch you on the next episode.